you think about it, like the engineers are always like, well, if it wasn't for me, there wouldn't be any product and there wouldn't be any need to do anything. It's like, well, yeah, but like if there aren't any salespeople, no one's buying the product and we're all going home. And so it's like this idea of like dividing the work and knowing each piece of the work is so important. And that mission is making our customer the hero.
It's a good segue into like so Ben, you said that you all went from, was it 20 to 80?
About 30 to 100.
30 to 100. And so, how do you keep folks engaged? I mean, that's crazy. That's a lot of growth within what time span was it?
9 months.
Wow. So
how do you keep those folks kind of engaged? Well, one, how do you even hire like that? That's insane. We'd love to see your roadmap on firms you use for that. That is truly impressive. I want to know, like, how do you keep folks engaged at that rapid pace without feeling like, they're just, I don't know, one more number added to the bunch, but like almost, each hire, you're a special edition here. And what is it that you all do that's special that carves that out for folks?
I think when you have to think about it, right, you got to break it down into a team and you got to tell the team it's special. Because every team is special. It's like, you think about it, like the engineers are always like, well, if it wasn't for me, there wouldn't be any product and there wouldn't be any need to do anything. It's like, well, yeah, but like if there aren't any salespeople, no one's buying the product and we're all going home. And so it's like this idea of like dividing the work and knowing each piece of the work is so important. And that mission is making our customer the hero. And being able to rally around a mission is what's so important, in my opinion, right? When you're a 20-person startup, when I first started here, Dave was the integrator. He like, okay, I don't know all the things, so let's go ask Dave. And like, he became the integrator. And that was super important. You get to 50 or 60 people, you can't do that anymore. What you need to do is everyone needs the autonomy to be awesome. They need it, right? And that autonomy to be awesome comes with an accountability and responsibility. You as part of the leadership team have to go and enforce. It's like, it's great you have autonomy, but did you go talk to this person? Did you talk to this person? Did you make sure this customer is going to be happy? All these different things. And when you come into an organization and you're 2 months in and there's someone who's been sitting there for 5 years gritting it out, it's like, did you talk to them? And these are things you have to teach within the organization when you grow at such a breakneck speed. And there becomes these pillars, right? These pillars of people who know exactly what's taken place in the past, who can help you make the decisions in the future. Now, sometimes the decisions of the past were like, okay, we were going north, like, oh, wow, we're going south now. That totally didn't work. And you have to be able to step back and recognize that. And it is very, very difficult when you've been down on the ground in the grit, doing it for 5-6 years, and then being able to pull yourself back out and say, yeah, we did that, but now that won't scale. We can't do that for 100,000. For us, it's water meters. We do things for 100,000 water meters. We were doing it for 500. Now we need to do it for 100,000 or 200,000. It doesn't scale. And this idea of scale is the most important part, where I could go and be a mad scientist in the back and make it work, but hey, that doesn't scale. And these are the things you have to go do. And part of what you have to do is you have to go and drive that culture that says, hey, it's inclusive. Our customer is the hero of the story, not us. That's kind of how I think about it. I'm not sure there's a recipe, but that's kind of what we went through.
I think the scaling thing is interesting because there's stuff that you like, because I think the opposite is also true when you're going 0 to 20 or whatever, where I think people start trying to overbuild or try and think too much about, well, this needs to be able to scale. And it's like, well, that's all well and good, but if we don't actually get this built, we're just going to go out of business. So there's that balance of
that still happens when you're 30 to 100. That still happens. I mean, let's be clear.
I'm sure it does, right? But I think that whole notion, like, I think that's one of those things that's really hard to navigate. Is how do you build the right solution that's the right balance of scalability versus
First, let me just dispel this. The word right really makes me feel uncomfortable because there is never right?
Well, there's right now.
What is going to work for right now, and what doesn't handcuff me down the road, right? And what that is for me with a company that's grown to almost 100 people, and what that is for Anusha for a company of 20 are likely very, very different things, right? I have customers on every coast in the United States, right? That has a different feel for it. right? And my customers actually have physical things. That's different too. So each startup is going to be a little bit different.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 100%. And to your point of like having those pillars and almost those folks early in that have gone through the grit end up being the integrators, right? But it's not just about scaling the product, it's about scaling the mentality and scaling the institutional knowledge that they have, right? So that they become focal points perhaps of different teams, but those teams have to continue on and expand out.
Yeah, and that team, and when you think about that team concept, what you can't have is people back there going, I'm trying to make sure that like no one else knows what I know because then I'll always be needed. These are the things you've got to go figure out from a leadership perspective, because there's just an innate human thing that we all do. Myself, everybody does. And what you have to do is like reject that thought process and be able to say, I'm putting in Confluence. So if I'm not here because I went to Las Vegas for the weekend, someone can find it. That mentality becomes so important because everything changes over time. When you go from 20 or 30 to 100 people, so many things change. You've got to write this stuff down. You got to have a structure. You got to have what I would call an enterprise operating system, some process to allow you to go, hey, this is an issue. This isn't an issue. These are the things that really bring teams together.
100%. We have a head of infrastructure that at least once a week, I will hear him say this, where he's like, my sole purpose is to automate myself out of a job because I don't want to be doing the same things in 5 years or even next week that I'm doing today, because that means I'm not growing, right? So, and that's kind of the way to sort of put a positive spin on that culture of don't hold on to information, because then you'll be stuck doing what you're doing. You want to move, you want to grow and move on to something else.
In fact, that's advice that I give. Like that's how I've moved up in my career. That's how, like, whenever people who report to me ask me questions, like, what do you do? It's like, right. The idea is, if I can get out of the job I'm doing now to work on other things, that's what's enabled me to move up. And so writing things down, training my replacement, automating my way out of it, whatever it is, those are all the ways to start. Like, if the company can't see you, like can't see anyone else in the role that you're currently in, that's a problem. Like, that's going to stifle your own ability to grow.